It's March already? Wow, February really flew right on by, didn't it? Well, since it's gone, might as well talk about what I read that month. Book number 1 was Who Could That Be at This Hour by Lemony Snicket, part of his All the Wrong Questions series. This is the first bit of Lemony Snicket that I've read from beginning to end. I watched the movie based off a series of unfortunate events. I read part of the first book, and it's good, but I never really fully dove into it. And this is a much smaller series. I think it tops out at like 4 books and then like a collection of short stories. So, and I like the way it feels and the way it looks. So, I figured, I'll give it a shot. It's good. I gave it 4 stars. Lemony Snicket's the main character. It's him as a child entering whatever organization he works for. He's teamed up with a crazy lady and they go to a weird place to solve a mystery that ends up being way more convoluted than it should have been, but he figures it out. Cats, everybody. Cats. The reason I can't give it 5 stars, even though I really enjoyed reading this book, is because of the structure. Now, it is meant to be a series, and it's meant to be a series you're supposed to read all of them to get the full story. But there's a lot of gaps that I know they're there to set up the rest of the series, but it still should have explained more than what it did. The story just kind of ends. I've seen it happen with short stories. It's as if they reach, oh, here's our word count, might as well stop, even though they haven't got an ending yet. This isn't quite that bad, but they solve like the initial problem, sort of, and it creates problems for the rest of the series, which, I mean, that's how series work sometimes, I guess, but I don't know, I wanted a little more completeness out of this book, and I didn't get that, so 4 stars. Book number 2 this month was an audiobook that I've heard before, and we'll probably listen to again, because it's very well done, and that is H.P. Lovecraft's The Dunwich Horror. I'm a big fan of Lovecraft's writing. I think anybody in the horror literature community definitely is as well. Yeah, kind of a racist in real life, kind of an anti-Semite, but the man's scary stuff is amazing. It's one of the things you have to learn to separate the art from the artist, which in Lovecraft's case is pretty easy to do, seeing as, well, he's been dead for a long time. The Dunwich Horror is great. I think it might be the high point of his fiction. I know some people will tell you that that's out in the mountains of madness. They're wrong. It's the Dunwich Horror. I think it would make an amazing movie if it were adapted properly. It covers a long span of time dealing with weird family dynamics and supernatural creatures and tentacle elephants, and it's great. It's absolutely great. If you have almost 3 hours to kill, definitely consider listening to the audiobook, or it's usually in a collection of his short stories. Definitely get it with that. I highly recommend the Dunwich Horror. It's fantastic. It's so fantastic that it's the only thing out of this month that gets 5 stars. Unfortunately, H.P. Lovecraft stories are like Lay's potato chips. You can't just eat one. So I had to listen to a second audiobook, The Beast in the Cave. It was okay. The resolution is meant to be a standard Lovecraft shock ending, but it's really not. 3 stars. It was just kind of average. Listen to it if you want. As with the Dunwich Horror, the link will be in the description. I expected more out of it. Hey, look, everybody! More Lovecraft! I also got through the audio version of At the Mountains of Madness, what is considered to be H.P. Lovecraft's defining work. No. I know Guillermo del Toro has been trying to make a movie of this for years, and it just never happens for various reasons. I kind of hope it doesn't, because it'd be boring. The story itself isn't boring, but it's It's perfectly one of those stories that I don't know if you could translate it from written literature to physical 2.5 hour, 3 hour long movie. I don't see how you make it exciting, and it's one of the best examples of Lovecraft's. You gotta picture it in your head, and what you're picturing is way scarier than anything that rubber puppet monsters and digital animation can make. I don't see how it would work well. But that's for adaptations that we hope never happen. Let me break down the actual story itself. Some scientists go into the Arctic, find a mountain, and on that mountain they find a city. The city of people who fought Cthulhu's people and were big monster creatures who were the original creators of Earth. And they're gone now, and great old one wars are depicted through murals, and insanity happens, and it's standard Lovecraft. It's too much. It's too much. It's not quite as good as other Lovecraft. It's certainly not as good as the Dunwich Horror. It's one of those problems of what makes some horror in particular scary is the less you know, the better. And honestly, it's one of the most explanation-heavy Lovecraft stories I've ever read. And it doesn't fully work. And that's sad to say, because I had really high hopes for it. And there are a lot of parts of it that are very entertaining. And if I had been holding a book at the time, I'd have been gripping the covers. But just overall, if you take it as a whole work, it's not as good as I wanted it to be. And I don't blame Lovecraft for it. He was working with what he had, and I guess he decided to try something new, and it just didn't really work for me. I will, like the others, I'm going to include a link in the description below. Listen to it yourself if you want. It's a long one. And, hey, if it's your favorite Lovecraft story, good on you. It's not going to be one of my favorites. But because of the writing style and everything with it, and various points that do happen through it, 4 stars. 4 stars. Sorry, I forgot which hand I'm working with. Last but not least, the only other piece of physical media I read happens to be nonfiction. On Writing, a Memoir of the Craft by Stephen King. It was alright. I give it 4 stars. I've only read one piece of Stephen King literature up until this point, and that was Cycle of the Werewolf, which was really good. I've seen a lot of Stephen King movie adaptations, and those are pretty good. I plan on reading this year. I'm excited about that. But, yeah, On Writing. It's broken into 3 sections. The first section is a Stephen King's life, and that part's pretty good. You can see the inspiration for a lot of his major stories come through. Some of them I wouldn't have admitted to how that story came about, but whatever. The second part is a literal how to be a writer section. That's part's alright. And then the third part is about his accident in 1999, which happened to be when he finished writing this book. 2 of these parts are really interesting, and then there's that part in the middle that's questionable. I'm not saying his advice is bad. I'm just saying that, from what I've gathered from hearing other writers and writing myself, and dealing with other writing applications, there are no fast and hard rules. It's really writing can really work as whatever works for you works. Mr. King, however, seems to be a firm believer that, for the most part, there are hard and fast rules. And there's some stuff that should be never attempted, even though I've read people who've attempted it and it works beautifully. Yeah, a lot of it's older literature, but I don't see how that is a problem. If you want to write in an older style with older tropes, I don't see where that's a problem, particularly if you can make it entertaining and work. Mr. King disagrees, and I disagree with Mr. King. So, on that basis, 4 stars. Well, that's everything for February. Hope y'all come back for March. I've got some exciting reads lined up for March. See y'all then.